to the SoulBodyHorse podcast, where we dive deep into the horse-human connection. Here we believe in the power of stories, in digging deeper, pushing further, and asking the oft-unsaid question. I'm your host, Meredith Crawford. Today we have a very special guest, Lauren Keegan. Lauren is a certified equine sports therapist serving the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, with nearly 10 years of experience. She studied at the BC College of Equine Therapy, as well as completing a Bachelor of Science from SFU. Through her own process of healing, she has developed her own ability to listen and hear the animals she works with. She brings this unique ability into her practice, combining equine bodywork and listening. This brings a unique and powerful combination to her sessions, providing the best possible route for healing for equine companions. Horses give us so much, and to be able to give back to them in this way fulfills her heart. For some of the devoted listeners out there, Lauren and I first crossed paths several years ago with Gomez, the horses whose story is relayed in episode 1. And I've since come to a deep appreciation of how Lauren's unique gifts and approach truly help horses to heal and regain their full abilities. In today's episode, I've asked Lauren to unpack some of her unique approaches and assumptions that she makes that create such outstanding results. So first of all, Lauren, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. I just want to dive into the role of consent because I know from us working together, that plays a huge part of your approach with horses and with your body work and how you help them heal.
Yeah, for sure. Guess kind of where do you want me to start? Like, where did it sort of come from, I guess? Why am I find that piece so important? I just find that the body can only take so much at once. So being able to really tap in and sort of find answers and based on what the body can take in this moment can be really beneficial. The nervous system can only take so much change at once. You can only address so many things at once where the body sort of taps out and you're not able to really get any farther. And so through the listening process, it's been really important to really honor that because there's usually a reason why. If I get a no or a no permission, there is a reason. We may just not know what it is exactly.
What led you to hone in on this? Was there a series of horses that you were working on or something you read?
The course from Dave Collins, BC College of Equine Therapy, his process was based on muscle testing or applied kinesiology. And he always harped on the fact that it was important to check for permission before going into anything. Obviously, someone can tell you something and then you have to put it into practice, right? And so it took me just sort of my own process of listening to myself and learning what my body can take, what it can't take, and realizing if I don't listen to those no's or listens to the no permissions, even from my own body, somewhere down the road, the answer to why comes up. And so it just being able to honor that in myself was really important. And so if I could see how important it was in myself, I could also see how important it was for the horses.
For many people, their consent for them sort of begins and ends in the sexual.
Yes, yeah.
So for the listeners out there who are less familiar with the nuances of consent, especially around animals and our horses, can you just unpack what that looks like?
How do I ask for permission kind of thing? Or like how would it feel in my body kind of thing? Like
how would it feel? But really, what is consent? Where do you ask for areas of consent? What does it look like not to have consent with a horse? And go ahead and proceed with work or something anyways.
Yeah, so I guess it comes out in many ways when you go past that permission piece. But for me, like my process involves even before I like step into their energetic area. So their physical body, there's a physical body is also the energetic aura, the heart aura. There's so many different areas outside the body that are connected to them that we have to sort of listen into first. So even just before I walk up is like to a horse, it's like, am I even have permission to be within your vicinity? Like, is this something that I can get close to? And I find those answers within my own body, whether it feels right or not. It's a bit of a different process. And so that's the first place I usually start. And so do I even have permission to get to connect with you? Then translates into, okay, well, what direction do we go? Like sometimes I do body work, but sometimes I also do a lot of energy work. So when it comes to body work, I feel like that could be pretty intrusive if they're not willing to go there. So usually if I'm going to be doing body work, I just check whether it's even appropriate for me to start there. And if I go past that and don't listen, then you just don't get the responses often in the body. So the tissue doesn't change. Or you'll do something and it'll switch something in their bodies, but then it'll come back really quick in a few days. If they're really opposed to it, then they'll either want to walk away, they'll be fidgety, they'll not be listening, they won't be sort of in tune with you at all. And when you can't get the body to relax, you can't really change much in the body.
And then when you do have this consent, the changes, it sounds like, are able to hold longer, come on a deeper level.
Yeah, you just get to a sort of the root cause of things and really to the root of the soul and into the body. When you get permission, the body is ready to change those things that they're showing you. And so that change comes a lot easier. If they're not willing to change that and their body's not ready for it, then you may be able to make slight shifts, but there's usually some sort of resistance behind it.
For the horse owner who's there in the barn with their horse, what does consent look like? Or rather, what does not having consent look like?
I do so much on feel. So I feel within my body whether they're willing or not. But if you want to look on the physical level of a horse, they'll turn away from you. They will sort of won't even want to connect on any level to do anything, so they'll not be engaged with you. Obviously you can get pinning of ears, you can get swishing of tails, that's the extreme sort of physical responses that you would get with it within the body. But often they'll just not want to engage with you. If it's something they need in that moment and it's something they want, they'll 100% be within it with you, and you'll get responses like blanks, you'll get licking and chewing, you'll get yawning, you'll get sort of the head sort of relaxed. So it's sort of, you want to look, when you're pushing too far past, you'll get the negative response, but you also want to just be in tune to all those little minute things you see within their bodies and their expression that's happening.
Okay. Have there been horses that you've worked with, or maybe one horse in particular, maybe even your own, where consent was like night and day different?
Yeah. Well, I have this one, a bunch of them, but my one gray that I have, he's 25 now. He's a very sensitive sort of in-tune individual. And when you go into any sort of body work with him where you're trying to make something happen without it being consensual with him in the right way, he just doesn't respond, and he doesn't really want to be interested at all. He'll walk away. He'll not, because I like to do a lot of my work when I can loose, so they have the choice to leave or go when they're ready. But the moment, and he loves a light touch. So if I do anything more than sort of energy work, he often will not be interested. The power of that was crazy. There's some cool changes I've seen in his body with literally just energy work or essential oils or sort of energy light stuff that I did no physical massage, nothing. And I got some really cool changes in his body. And so he taught me the value of that light touch and the value of listening to what their needs are and what their bodies want and can accept.
Wow. Shifting gears a little bit, we've often chatted with regards to Gomez and his coming back about working for the highest, best self of something versus healing perfectly, perfect healing or perfect body.
Yes.
And this seems to be another big tenet that you have underpinning your approach and all of what you do. Would you mind just sort of sharing with me first, how you came to this position or how you came to including this so much in your approach?
Yeah. A lot of the work I do with the horses came from my own sort of process of opening myself up and sort of listening to my own body. And I just found that, hey, we want to change all these things within our own space and our own bodies, but again, our body can't always take that. And so it was just making sure that I was listening to what my soul on a like deep level needs versus what I think it needs to get to the place that I think I need to get to. I'm sure that makes any sense. But like when we have an agenda of what we think we want to accomplish or what we want to do, it's great to have goals, but maybe our bodies are telling us something different. And so it's just really tuning into the fact that on a deep soul level, we know what we need, when we need it, and how we need it. And so if we can tap into that rather than going through and pushing to create something that maybe isn't what of our highest good, can be really important. So with the horses, they also have an agenda or a goal or a soul that knows what they need. And so if we can really tap into that, they find the route to their best possible healing. They find the way that works best for them to get what they need for their highest good. Versus if we have a goal for this horse to get to the Grand Prix level, but maybe they just physically and mentally are not capable of that in this moment. And so if we set that goal that we want them to be Grand Prix, but we're going to end up going through a track to try and get there that may not be of their highest good and may end up making it harder on them, if that makes sense. Kind of explain like kind of where I started from it.
Yeah, but it sounds like in us working together again with Gomez, you've taken this not just on a larger soul purpose level, but even into the tissue or specific bones at a specific moment in time.
Yes, that for sure. To me, it directly translates. Because everything is so interconnected within the body, to me, you got to find the like root piece that in this moment needs to be addressed to help the process of healing. And so if you're just going to address all the muscles that are tight and try and loosen everything up, that's great because that will make them feel better temporarily. But if you're not getting to that sort of root muscle that in this moment is the tightest or like sort of the tension point, I guess is what I see it as and feel it as, you're maybe just doing more work than you kind of need to, if that makes sense. So for me, with the tissues, you got to listen to what the body can unravel in this moment at this time in order to create the highest possible healing process for them.
What tools do you use to help facilitate all of this?
Well, I have quite a few different tools that I use.
Or maybe the better question is, what are your favorite tools?
Right. I tend to gravitate to some of the like basic essential oils kind of really resonate with me. Honestly, I use a lot of my intuition is my biggest tool. And listening, being able to listen, there's this power of listening that kind of gets unnoticed. And the horses really show you where that can be really beneficial. If you literally just go sit in the field with them and have no agendas and literally just sit there with them and listen, it's crazy the stuff that kind of comes up for me. So meditation was sort of like a good gateway into that because it gave me to a space where I could receive the messages. And so it's a similar process for me that, intuition is probably my greatest tool that I use. And the listening process, sometimes nothing needs to be done. We literally just need to be with that space and listen to it in order for it to start to unravel. So I guess that would be my favorite. I use some crystals, essential oils, block flower remedies sometimes can be really helpful on the sort of emotional level. But those are my basic ones at the moment that I really gravitate towards.
Are there specific questions or intentions that you like to come back to time after time around this topic that have helped you in your work that you've really seen the horses respond to?
I guess two things. One is just setting the intention to listen with no agendas. And I know we've sort of touched on that the whole session, but just listen without agendas is the first thing I go to. Setting the intention to listen without any agendas. And I often will take different sort of write my intention down before I start a session because it can be different depending on what the animal wants. And so it's sort of like intuitively gathering information of how I want this session to go and how the animal wants the session to go.
Do you find that there's often differences, or we'll just say gaps, between what the animal wants for a session, their human, and you, the healer?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. And I think that's why I harp on it so much, is because it can be hard to explain to, especially the owners or people that aren't sort of familiar with this process, how that sort of works for the agenda. And so, yeah, because we as humans, we always want to help things. We always want to love our animals more, and we want to help fix whatever is going on with them. And so when our agenda is merely to do that, we kind of miss sort of all the nuances within the animal and what they want for themselves and what they actually need in this moment. So yeah, there can be quite a discrepancy between what I'm looking for, what they're looking for, and what the owner is looking for. My job, I think, often is just literally to set that intent in the beginning and make it clear, like, what my intentions are going into it. Because I often know I've gone into a bodywork session with the idea that I want to fix something because I want to help so badly. And that often that mindset just doesn't work. You just get tissue that doesn't want to listen to what you want their body to do. And so it's just, yeah, for sure, there can be a huge discrepancy.
There's something I think we come to, like, collectively to our vets and to our body workers about, here's this horse, fix him. It's like the onus is on the vets and the body workers and the healer type people to, quote unquote, fix the horse. Where do you think this comes from within our cultural psyche, just collectively? Because you're sitting up here in Canada, I'm sitting here in the US, but certainly this is also, I think, prevalent with vets and healers in Europe. But where does this come from? And really, what would a better outcome be?
Yeah, I think it to some degree is human nature, because it's not just in the horse world. It's also in like humans own, like if you look at athletes and that kind of thing, they're always looking to keep their bodies in the best shape possible and trying to fix everything. It's not always possible, but there's things out there that for sure help and can help you keep going and that kind of thing. But I think to a lot of degree, it's just sort of human nature. And there's a misunderstanding, I think, too, unless you're a vet or you're a body worker, you don't really understand necessarily how the healing works or how the body works or what you're actually asking your body worker to do. So I think knowledge can be really important as to like understanding what we are capable of, and as well as like what we're asking our vets or body workers to do. There can be some pretty amazing things that can happen with body work and with the energy work, and you can help clear so much within the body and make the body feel a lot better. But you're not always capable of completely fixing a situation. Sometimes it's maintenance of keeping the body in a nice spot. And it's the same, I think, with vets too, like as much as like all the injections and that kind of thing. Not that I'm a vet and can really speak to that, but it's not always a fix entirely. It's sometimes just a Band-Aid, right? To help with the inflammation, help things sort of clear a little bit, that kind of thing. And so I think just the understanding that we're trying to help the best we can, but we can't always fix everything. And again, I think it's just a little bit of human nature of, again, having that agenda of what we want to accomplish with this horse, where we want to get with this horse. And we put a lot of time, money, and effort into these animals. And so we often hope that we will get to where our goals are, right? And so it can be really hard to let that piece go in ourselves when we're working towards something, right? I think we're all in that some way, shape, or form feel that way. For me, I've had a couple horses that I absolutely love and have either gone unsound or just have little interest in the riding aspect of things, and they showed me a different side of what they're here for us. And they just have so much to give on a level that I never thought to look at, and I wouldn't have, unless I'd been sort of forced into that, I wouldn't have. So I think that's where the listening becomes so important, because they really do have so much to show us and experience with us on more than just the riding level. And so for me, my hope is that we can at least listen to some degree, whether we're riding them, whether we're their companions, whatever they are to us. I just hope that we can find a way of being able to listen to what their bodies are telling us.
Yeah, I think that's the hope of all of us in the healing arts.
Definitely.
I've had respiratory problems throughout my whole life, and to the point where in some respects they've been career ending and job ending, and been a journey for myself as well, figuring out what are band-aids, what is healing, and what is possible. For so many years I'd go to the doctor and would just, since I have respiratory problems, I would get all the inhalers and all the steroids, and they'd suggest some scary tests and other scary treatment options that just I wasn't comfortable with at the time. And so for myself, going on and trying different modalities and saying, okay, how does this help my body? Well, it seems like maybe it helps for a time, and then my body falls back and I have lung issues again. And then kind of continuing that to what really is possible in terms of respiratory health, but also what if this, I don't know if I hesitate to use the word disease these days, but what if this situation or these circumstances are there to power me further? And so instead of spending all of my time, energy, money trying to become, quote unquote, perfectly normal and have normal respiratory capabilities, how do I use these things to find my own perfectly normal? That is maybe different from somebody else's.
Totally.
And this lately has really played into my own writing, because since I have so many respiratory problems, that really affects the diaphragm. So my writing instructors would always tell me to engage the psoas, and I would always say, well, do you want me to breathe?
Interesting, huh?
Because of the give and take between the two muscles.
Right.
And now, instead of going through all of these modalities in this journey to try and be able to breathe and engage the psoas, maybe in the way that my instructors wanted me to do it, maybe there's a way for me to achieve the same result or a slightly different outcome while still being able to breathe and stay stable on a horse.
Yes. Find your own way.
Indeed.
Yeah. It sounds a little tricky, but yeah. Yeah. And that's sort of a similar idea, like behind the consent piece and listening to the body of the horse and what it can actually do. Yeah. You got to sometimes find their own way of making it work, and it's not always the ideal. Right. And so I think if we can listen to them at the core, we get better answers that way, because it's not always going to be the perfect way, For sure. But there's some level of just detachment from the process. For sure. That one's hard. And that is very hard. Yeah. Because when you're told, or when you have certain expectations that something looks or feels or has a certain capability in a specific way, letting go of all of that can be really difficult. Yes. I think that comes down to our need to control the path and make things happen and fix things and that piece. And I know for a fact that has been a big part of my journey of letting it go and letting that piece go. And it can then again really hard to explain to people too if they haven't experienced it either, right? It's just it can be a really tough one to figure out. And I think this is where we as humans perhaps need to really be empathetic, because it's easier to see maybe these things in our own life and within our own species, but not have these lessons perhaps carry through to the horses. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you see animals and horses. I think they're on the same level. If at one point figured they were knew more than we did. And I think they do sometimes, honestly. It can be hard to translate for sure. And yeah, the empathy piece for sure. And not all of us can feel as deeply as others. And so being able to like mentally like go there can be important too, right?
Right. But it sounds like what you've tapped into is a lot of release around the process and also release around the outcome in perhaps a tangible sense, while holding maybe more strongly to the outcome of having and being on one's soul path.
Body knows what it needs when it needs it. And so I've just learned through trial and error, probably to some degree, of seeing so many amazing things happen from this space of no agenda. Like I think I just have such a strong belief in what the body is capable of and the power of listening and tuning into that sense of your body. And that allows me to let go of that control a little bit and that need to try and fix. And I don't say I'm perfect at it all the time, because I am not, but I'm getting closer and closer to being able to like really follow that path too. Right. So.
And just because I'm totally curious, have you done anything with human design at all?
I don't know. What is human design? What do you mean by that?
Human design is, someone lump it as like a personality test, sort of like Myers-Briggs. Although it goes a little bit beyond that, because it looks at chakra centers and some of the more esoteric things of how your body works with energy, how your body responds, where you feel within your certain areas within your body.
Yeah, I would say we did human design, but like I've had sort of a background. I did a lot of, personally, I did like emotional freedom technique, which is EFT. So that's like the tapping on certain, and you also like tap into like emotions and like where they get trapped in the body. I do chakra balancing as well. So I guess to some degree, yeah, I've kind of used all that. I've like fully, emotions. I am a very emotional being. I feel very, very deeply. And for a long time, I didn't know what emotions were in my body or what I was or what I was feeling at any time. And so a lot of my process was like unraveling all that, because there were just so much that needed to be dealt with, and there's so much trapped in my body. And so that was like one of my biggest endeavors, and where a lot of my listening process comes from, because I had to learn it from myself. So if I could feel it within me, then I could help others as well, right? So
well, one hopes, but sometimes that jump between doing it for yourself and being able to do it for others, there could be a gap there.
Yeah, I for sure. But I think I definitely have the tools on the like listening side, like for the horses, that really translates very similarly from human to horse, honestly, in a lot of ways, on the listening side of things. So yeah, I think that's part of my process too, is to help others if I can. So that's where I'm headed. That's the hopes anyways.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, for any of our listeners out there, if you'd like to learn more about working with Lauren, you can visit her website at healingroots.ca. For our listeners far and wide, Lauren's uniquely gifted at distance sessions. And for more information about our host, Meredith Crawford, and my exploration into the depths of the horse-human relationship, you can visit me at thelab.horse. Thanks for tuning in.